since 1999, except two, have never been to the four walls of the university. It's difficult for them to really understand what it means to be a university student in the first place and what is needed to keep universities open.
Well, the 2023 presidential election is considered one of Nigeria's most important elections, and this is because of the country's current position, its stalled growth, and a disgruntled populace. At the moment, in Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital, many students are out there on the streets protesting for being home for more than 7 months. Now, many politicians have thrown their hats in the ring, including some of the most established and famous political heads in the country. There are outsiders, the dark horses for the race, and these are people who also have declared their ambition to become president. While the road to Aso Rock is undeniably difficult to ply, these candidates are not leaving the fight for another day. The third force in Nigeria has grown and is still growing, and political parties like the AAC, that's the African Action Congress, are at the forefront. My guest on VSA today is one of Nigeria's most vocal politicians and activists, and is vying to become the country's president. Welcome to VSA. I'm Sulaiman. In 5 months, Nigerians will go out to vote for the next president, holding many reasons and standpoints. Some of these reasons have been observed during various political conversations, physically and across social media. There are foremost names making the headlines, and dark horses also stay behind the scenes to map out a strategy to help their emergence. My guest today ran in the 2019 presidential election under the AAC, a party he founded 4 years ago. Next year, he will be vying for the presidency again under the same party, despite initial challenges against his leadership of the party. A vocal activist and a man who divides opinions amongst the Nigerian political populace. Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of the AAC, joins me today. Good to see you, and thanks for your time.
Thanks for bringing me.
I know it's been a tiring moment for you today, a rainy day here in Lagos, and I wouldn't delve into politics without asking you some of the key things, because I know many, many years ago you would have been there, students trooping out on account of being home for 7 months,
yes,
owing to strike by university lecturers. Tell us how this, or what this means for you.
Well, it's for me a reminder of what I went through in the university system in the 90s. I spent 6 years studying a 4-year course.
6?
Yes. And part of it was the closure of our universities due to ASU strike. But our biggest problems in those days were student demonstrations that led to violent clashes with the military, and they would close down the schools. So we were expelled as student leaders. So on 2 occasions, I was expelled from the university. And to see that in 2022, some 30 years later, the same problems are still prevalent. The strikes are still very around. Students are still being persecuted or harassed. And that Nigerian nation has not come to terms with the need to fund education. We're talking about university students today who have been home for 7 months, going to 8. We're not talking yet about little kids, 20 million of them who are out of school.
Yeah, the out of school children.
Yes. So that's even worse because there are only 1.7 or so university students. So there are 20 million kids out of primary and secondary school system, and nobody's talking about them. And the government of Nigeria doesn't seem to care. And this is a country in which today businessmen had their biggest corporate welfare break. 16 trillion naira has been allocated to Dangote and a few companies, and ASU is only looking for about 1.2 trillion naira in terms of allocation to higher education so that they can go back to work. Nobody cares about them, but the Senate cares about corporations and individuals who are already doing well, making the system.
Sure, how difficult it is for anyone to understand, because when you talk about the amount, it's not coming to the pockets of the teachers.
No, it's for
the good of the country, yes, ultimately.
Yes.
So how difficult it is for someone to understand that this is about the country?
I think part of the way to look at it is that most Nigerian leaders in the last 30 years or since 1999, except two, have never been to the four walls of the university. So it's difficult for them to really understand what it means to be a university student in the first place and what is needed to keep universities open. So we keep talking about the quality of Nigerian education system, tertiary education, but that's the same system that's just donated 8,000 doctors to the UK, Canada, and US after COVID. So there must be something we're doing right here that must be continued. We cannot ignore education. Education is so important for a country that has 200 million people and that wants to break through in a modern world where education and technology is a watchword for progress and development.
You know, I had spoken to you earlier, and we said something about NANS, the student body. So what we're seeing today, is it enough for us to say too late, or still very much in order?
Well, you know, it's never too late. I participated today.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I took, I walked into the rain when I ran into the traffic to the airport and walked for about 2 miles to get to the students, and I was able to talk to them. I also spoke to the police not to try anything funny, to let them know that we are watching from outside. So it's encouraging what NANS did today. It's what I was talking about in your show, that in our times, we would have shut down everywhere and this strike would have been resolved more quickly. And if this continues, I guess more students will join, parents will join, everybody will join. Before you know it, the police might join in. With what I saw today, you can't trust the police, but they were well behaved as far as I'm concerned today, and very civil in dealing with the student protest, because it was a peaceful protest. So it's great to see NANS coming back on track in terms of fighting for students' rights. So that was very encouraging today.
Now, I know we'll go into your presidential aspiration to talk more about some of the key things that you feel will make up your campaigns when the campaigns officially start. But again, quickly here, your journey so far into politics. You know, when people see Sowore first from activism to journalism, and now he's a politician, let us in on this battle of winning the soul of your party, which was hijacked after the 2019 election.
You know, we, after the 2019 election, we decided as a party not to just let the end of the election be the end of our own political activities, because we knew that elections were not legit, they were not free and fair. And we decided that we would engage in protests. And that was how we started Revolution Now. It was a party that declared Revolution Now. And eventually, I was arrested and detained. And while I was in detention, they completed the plan they had started while I was in the US to hijack the party. And while I was in detention, they went and had a kangaroo convention, claimed they had changed the chairman of the party. But when I got out of detention, I instituted a lawsuit to counter what they obtained at the Federal High Court, at the Court of Appeal. But because of the fact that the justice system in Nigeria can be very frustrating in terms of delays and unnecessary technical issues introduced to delay justice, it took us 3 years before we could get judgment. So it wasn't until June the 2nd this year that a pronouncement was made that the lower court was wrong to have intervened in party affairs. It was an internal affair of the party and discussed, and we were restored, and INEC started acting immediately. So we had to go immediately to do primary elections for all the positions. At this point, we presented over 200 candidates for different positions, running as governors, senators, House of Rep. Within such a short time, one thing we kept doing while they claimed the party was not with us was to keep running political activities across the country. So we participated in elections where they let us participate. So the party remained firmly rooted with the grassroots and had members doing what they need to do. So when this judgment came in our favor, it wasn't difficult at all to get back to work.
And because some of the key concerns of Nigerians, some Nigerians, so to speak, they felt that just as with, because 2019 election was the first time pretty much younger Nigerians came on the scene. You're one of them, and they disappeared. And people had actually thought that Sowore too had disappeared, only for us to see that he's truly on the ballot. Yeah. So this was actually hijacked while you were in detention.
Yes. You know, and to say, it's very important to put it in context why people thought I disappeared. I spent 4 months in detention, 4.5 months in detention. And then a judge ruled that I have to be sequestered in Abuja. So for 3 years, I couldn't leave Abuja. And don't forget, it was during that period that my younger brother was killed. So we had to deal with that at the family level of his burial, situating his family, had 4 kids and a wife that had to be taken care of. So I was kept busy. And in the process, I got rearrested again. I was attacked. You see, my nose bridge was broken by a police officer. And my stay in Abuja enabled so many of the people who thought I'd offended them on Sahara Reporters to sue me. So I got sued by so many people for libel, you know, cybercrime and all that. So I had to be going to court to fight off all these attacks on my person. And it was as if they threw everything at me, including the kitchen sink.
Because now we're on television, you know, sometimes you read some things in the papers, and sometimes for the Thomases, they have their doubts.
Yes. And
now you're before me, I can see the scar on your nose, because when the news broke then that, well, your nose was broken.
I was shot at, you know, with a riot gun as well, you know, on my thigh. A police officer shot me at close range with a tear gas canister, and I had to be rushed to 2 hospitals before I could get treatment. It was pretty bad. My thigh was so swollen that it was almost twice the size of the original thigh. So these things were covered live in some instances. You don't want to count how many times my car was broken when I was attending Nnamdi Kanu's trial. And on one occasion, one guy brought a dagger and tried to stab me right in front of security agents.
Have you bothered, you know, sorry to cut you here, have you bothered asking who wants me, you know, out?
I think if anyone has done what I do, what I've been doing my entire life, 3 decades, you know, you have racked up enough enemies to stop wondering who's after you. But I know that what is central to it is the state, because I mostly focus on, you know, the state, Nigerian states, and its terroristic, you know, attitudes towards the citizens. So whichever way you look at it, they are the ones who are more interested in eliminating me. And the signs are all over the place. You know, I came across files even when I was in detention about things that are written about me when I was in my NYC in year like 1995. And these things were very clear that I'm one of the young people that is going to be problematic, and they should keep an eye on me, and if there's need for them to strike, they should. They had kept my name at the airport as far back as 1996 as a flight risk, as a dangerous person in the country. At that time, I was only 25 years. I had no job. I was just fighting for democracy alongside the likes of Falana, of Gani Fawemi, Bekor, and some Kuti, Lisa Bakova, and several other student leaders of our time. So to find out that my name had been put at the airport since 1996, who can tell where else they put my name, you know?
I think now, you know, when you mentioned Gani Fawemi and these great people, I wouldn't let us, you know, go into your politics without talking about the great man, because just a couple of days ago we saw you in Lagos for the first time since after you left Abuja to honor that man, Gani Fawemi. Pretty much hasn't been said about the man apart from people, you know, activists like you, Femi Falana, and the others. Why is it so difficult for a country? Because Martin Luther King, Gani Fawemi, you can put them on the same
pedestal. Absolutely. And he probably did more, considering that I read about Martin Luther King when I was in detention. And I found something very interesting in his biography, that when he would get arrested, the president of the U.S. would call his wife and say, hey, please don't worry, we're trying to do something, he'll get out. I mean, if Gani Farmer got into detention, they'll raid his house, his office, they'll, petrol bomb his office. Several times they did that. They attacked his office at the time and cut off the hand of his security man there. People here are vicious. I don't think that until his death, there was that kind of viciousness against some of the activists abroad that we talk about a lot. But it is, we cannot discount or discountenance the threats this person's face. I think the difference between Gani Farmer was that he probably didn't have that international coverage that the likes of Martin King got. Fela was another person in that regard, but Fela had become an international musician, so they won't let him die. There are over 36 bands in San Francisco alone playing Fela music on Friday night. There's a biopic that is being made. I know of two. There's been a Broadway show done in his name, Fela, that was super, super popular in New York City. There's been, a museum showing of his pictures and works. Nobody can forget Fela. I don't think Gani wasn't that lucky to be like that international activist, candidate, or civil rights fighter that could have been covered, accorded the same kind of recognition that Fela or Martin King got, or Bob Marley, for instance. So that's the only problem. But I think a lot of things will still happen with regards to Gani. I think books. I wish that he wrote even a small memo about himself. And I found out on the day we were at that memorial, which is 13th year of his death, that he was pleading that, God, if you can give me 6 more months, I would like to put down something that the world can say about my life. And that guy is powerfully packed in terms of his rich history of resistance. And I think one day a book or several books and a movie or documentary will be made about him. I know he used to carry a camera around in those days. I don't know if those films were properly preserved, but I know he's a super organized person. Yes.
How's it been like, talking about Gani, talking about these people who get arrested, who fight? Because since after your incarceration, when was the last time you were with your children?
Oh, I haven't seen my kids since July of 2019. Physically, my wife, same thing.
Since 2019?
Yes. July is when I left to come back to Nigeria, and that's when I got kidnapped in the middle of the night in my hotel in Ikeja and flown to Abuja.
You still think that was a kidnap?
Yes, that's how I say it, because it just came without arrest warrants. There's a video of it, the CCTV that captured how they came and just, swooped on me and took me away in the middle of the night to nowhere party. Nobody knew where I was taken until they obtained the CCTV. Was when they then confessed that I was in their custody. But one other thing that was instructive, and I haven't talked a lot about this, is I was flown in a small military jet, an Air Force jet, that I've been told has now crashed. Yes. And that keeps, because when we were flying out to Abuja, I was uncomfortable in that jet. It was a small jet, and it kept, just flailing, it would go up and down, and I was like, it's supposed to have 2 pilots, only one took us to Abuja. And it took an unnecessarily long time to get to Abuja. So something in me was saying that this jet has issues. I think it's one of the jets that either crashed on approach to Abuja, or maybe it's the one that killed the former chief of army staff. I don't know, but it's the same type of jet. So you can imagine that trauma of thinking, wow, that was the jet that brought me to Abuja.
So Sowore, the man in politics today, you've written quite a number of things about politicians, power brokers in your publication with your team at Sahara Reporters, yeah. And now you're into politics. Now, at what point did you say, you know how they say it in Nigerian local parlance, I beg you don't do, let me go in. At what point did you say, enough is enough, I'm going in?
It was 2015. when I came to Nigeria underground and covered the Nigerian elections. And
the 2015 elections?
Yes. Nobody knew I was in Nigeria. I was staying underground. Even the hoteliers where I was staying didn't know who I was until the election was held. And Sahara Reporters was the first to report the election results. We're ahead of even INEC. And people were wondering where did we get the results from. But that's not the issue for today. I then went to Abuja and moved around. And after that, I came to cover the inauguration of Buhari. So I was actually there beside him. And one thing was shocking, that after the inauguration, Buhari just disappeared. And Jonathan had left. For the first time, for me and to me, there was nobody in charge of Nigeria. You know, we're looking for who to talk to, nobody. Even at the Eagle Square, dignitaries that came from outside the country had to find their way out of the place because, you know, all these area boys took over the scene. As soon as Buhari left, police had no instruction. There was no commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And so I kept asking around, and somebody said something instructive to me, said, Buhari probably didn't know that he's the president of Nigeria at this point. He's probably gone to sleep. So it took about 2 days before they then appointed Femi Adesina and Garba Shehu to start talking about, you know, how they're going to. And then it took 6 months before the government could put a cabinet together. And I started telling myself, you know, I've written so many stories. At that point, probably some 5,000 stories that I personally wrote. You know, I told myself that journalism by itself or alone cannot change society. You know, and if anybody's going to talk about journalism, you know, I did adversarial journalism, you know, like the ones that makes people want to kill you, you know.
And many people don't understand that there is something like that.
Yes. So, and I know they were after me, and I said to myself, I've done all these stories, and I just see a pattern of immunity against, you know, exposés, scandals. The politicians just got worse as we wrote more. Yeah, I told myself, until and unless great people or good people get into government, you can write all you want. It's water off their backs. And that was the point at which I think I had my epiphany, because I used to hate politics. I never voted in my life until 2019. Never. I just didn't like the idea of, but that's why I'm very reluctant to be called a politician. You know, I have this personal disdain for the people who they call politicians in Nigeria. So I started talking to my friends and say, you know, why don't we try? And I came back to Nigeria, started what we call the Take It Back movement. I started moving around doing town hall meetings and so that people were receptive of the idea. And then I went to the 79 political parties. I approached at least 20 of them. No one of them would accept me. It was like, you know, you're too radical, or, you know, some will ask for money.
So you made that move?
Yes. I thought you guys want the country to change. You know me. Why are you not accepting me? I found out quickly that I was going to do all these town hall meetings and have no chance of becoming a candidate. So somebody came one night and said, evening I was on my way back to the US, he said, you know, INEC is registering parties. Why don't you apply? And that's how I applied. We applied to register our party in 2018. And INEC came and saw our office, they saw our seriousness. And we got the party registered, 29 or so parties newly registered. That's how we started. But what was shocking, like I said, is like to know that there are 79 political parties and no one of them. Because then I found out that most of the political parties were just special vehicles for doing all kinds of. Some of them, they keep them for elections. Some of them, they keep them for litigation. It's a long story. They just put them there.
Let's make it short.
Yes.
Let's make it short.
Yes.
So are you saying some of these political parties are appendages of some of the big ones?
Completely. I can tell you that categorically. The big ones there are individuals who own political parties in Nigeria, and there are parties who own political parties in Nigeria. Somebody told me something very interesting. I think I mentioned it on your show. And it's in this company, this dispensation, with a great friend of mine, he's running too. He said, let me tell you the truth, Sowore, I'm the flag bearer of my party. this person is a candidate. I was shocked. Just one party, the flag bearer and the candidate. And that's the truth for a lot of the parties. The guy who was kicked out of ADC is the same thing he's going through. They wanted him to be a placeholder for one of the candidates. But when he won his primaries, which they used to kick out Moghalu, because they knew Moghalu had that ticket, he's too stubborn to be controlled. So they kicked out Moghalu, and it was shocking to everybody. How could Moghalu lose to a person that most people didn't know? And when he became the candidate, he also refused to do the bidding of the people who made him candidate. And when he wasn't picking their calls anymore, they kicked him. Now they have expelled him. It's the first time in the history of Nigeria that a presidential candidate will be expelled from his party. There's nobody who's even thinking about a legal solution to it. You know, nobody knows how that will end. But it has started already, and it's always something strange that you've never heard about in Nigeria. So, yes, a lot of political parties are appendages of the bigger parties.
We'll take a moment. If you just joined us, you're watching VIC here, broadcasting live to 54 African countries and beyond. And our guest today is the presidential candidate for the AAC. When we come back, we'll be looking at what the AAC stands for and how prepared this party is for Nigeria's coming elections. Stay with us.
Nigeria, they use computer. The leaders of Nigeria, they use radio where they turn the knob.